every level of NFL owner explained. Level 1 are NFL owners that shouldn't even own a shoe, let alone a multi-billion-dollar organization. Complete train wrecks. So let's start with the obvious, Dan Snyder. Dan Snyder was so toxic as an NFL owner that he literally had to be forced out of the league. Under his ownership, the Washington franchise became synonymous with dysfunction, scandal, and complete organizational rot. The cheerleader scandal involving inappropriate conduct and exploitation led to congressional investigations. Think about that. Congress had to step in because of how badly he was running a football team. Woody Johnson isn't far behind. The Jets owner has turned one of the most storied franchises in NFL history into a perpetual punchline. Johnson's decision making is so erratic that he's managed to waste elite defensive talent year after year, cycling through coaches and quarterbacks like they're just disposable. The Jets haven't made the playoffs in over a decade under his ownership, and every time there's a glimmer of hope, Johnson finds a way to sabotage it. David Tepper might be the worst among them all right now. Since buying the Panthers, he's managed to destroy what was once a competitive franchise in record time. Tepper's impatience and ego have led to a revolving door of coaches, front office, and QBs. He throws drinks at fans, makes impulsive decisions that sets the franchise back for years, and has shown zero ability to build anything resembling a competent organization. Jimmy Haslam has to be here as well. The Browns owner has had 7 head coaches in 13 years. It's not building a culture, that's creating chaos. Haslam's desperation for success led to the catastrophic Deshaun Watson trade and contract. A move so bad, it might set the franchise back even another decade. You have an old-timer like Bill Bidwell here as well from the Cardinals, who won 6 playoff games total in his 58 years of owning the Arizona Cardinals. And Hugh Culverhouse, who took over the expansion Tampa Bay Bucks and promptly went 0-26 in his first 2 seasons of owning the team. William Clay Ford, former Lions owner, bought the team in the 60s and won 1 playoff game leading up until his death in 2013. Bob Irsay took a championship-winning team and left in the middle of the night. These owners all share common traits. They're ego-driven, impatient, and completely unstable. Level 2 was slightly better, but not by much. These owners are still bad, just not as bad. Mike Bidwell of the Arizona Cardinals oversees the oldest franchise in NFL history, yet somehow has managed to make them look like a minor league operation for most of their existence. They were so poorly run that they were in the Arizona State Sun Devil Stadium for 18 years because ownership was too cheap to build their own facility. The Cardinals have had 1 deep playoff run in 2008, and they've had 1 playoff appearance since Mike Bidwell fully took over. Mark Davis of the Las Vegas Raiders represents the perfect example of inherited incompetence. Since taking over from his legendary father, Al Davis, in 2011, Mark has presided over one of the most dysfunctional organizations in professional sports. In 13 seasons as an owner, the Raiders have had exactly 2 winning seasons and a win percentage of just 40%. Davis has cycled through 7 different head coaches, firing guys after making the playoffs and hiring disasters like Josh McDaniels. Shad Khan of the Jacksonville Jaguars might actually be the most frustrating owner in this tier because the potential is so obvious, yet he consistently finds ways to screw it up. The Jags have had exactly 1 deep playoff run since Codd took over, that magical 2017 Saxonville year. Mike Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals represents old cheapness that has handicapped his franchise for decades. The Bengals were so notoriously cheap under Brown that they didn't even have a practice indoor facility until just a few years ago, making them one of the last franchises in the league to build basic infrastructure. You have guys like Stephen Ross here with the Miami Dolphins as well. Level 3, we get to meh owners. These guys are okay, fine at best. Jim Irsay of the Indianapolis Colts represents the most frustrating group, RIP. Irsay genuinely loved his team and wanted to win more than almost any other owner in the league. But here's the problem. Irsay's questionable decision making would typically undermine his good intentions. What made Irsay particularly maddening is his loyalty to the wrong people. But hopefully with his daughters now stepping up, they can get back on track. Arthur Blank of the Atlanta Falcons is the perfect example of a well-intentioned owner who consistently gets in his own way. Blake seems like a genuinely nice guy who desperately wants to win, but he's business first and not football business, but relationships, partnerships, and community image. The problem with Blank is his patience turns into organizational paralysis. He's consistently late to pull the trigger on coaching changes when it's obvious the coach has lost the locker room. The McCaskey family has turned one of the NFL's most historic franchises into a perpetual disappointment that lives in the past. Bears fans have endured 35 plus years of mediocrity under McCaskey ownership, with maybe a handful of memorable moments. The McCaskies are obsessed with living in 1985 forever. Gail Benson of the New Orleans Saints inherited the team from her late husband, Tom Benson, and has shown she's willing to make tough decisions when necessary. When she fired Dennis Allen mid-season, it showed she wasn't going to let coaches burn down her franchises. You have other owners like Amy Adams Strunk from the Titans, Dean Spanos with the Chargers, and Cal McNair from the Texans here as well. They're passable, just nothing above average. But that's our next group. Level 4, these are solid, even good owners. Nothing special, but above average. Josh Harris of the Washington Commanders represents what competent ownership looks like after years of dysfunction. Harris has helped turn around the franchise almost immediately after taking over from Dan Snyder. The transformation has been remarkable. The Commanders went from being a toxic organization that players actively avoided to a competitive team that actually is fun to watch. Ziggy Wilf of the Minnesota Vikings has been one of the most underrated owners in the NFL. Since buying the team, the Wilfs have consistently provided the resources and stability needed for sustained success. They never want to rebuild, they just want consistent competitiveness, and they remind me of the Chiefs before they got Patrick Mahomes. Terry Pegula of the Buffalo Bills has transformed the franchise since taking over. The Bills have become one of the most exciting teams in the league with a strong organizational culture and excellent facilities. Sheila Ford of the Detroit Lions might be one of the most impressive owner transformation stories in recent NFL history. She took over a franchise that was historically terrible and has completely changed the culture. Sheila hired Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, two guys who were completely authentic and straightforward, and have completely changed the trajectory of this franchise. You have guys like Brian Glazer here from the Bucs as well, taking over the team in 2014. Rob Walton and the Walton family for taking over the Broncos. Level 5 is where we get to some really great owners. These guys are really good. Stan Kroenke of the Los Angeles Rams might be a terrible person, but man, can he run a pro sports team. Kroenke's business acumen and willingness to spend money have transformed the Rams into one of the NFL's premier franchises. What makes Kroenke great is his willingness to be aggressive when championship windows open. The trade for Matt Stafford and the all-in approach that delivered a Super Bowl shows that kind of win-now mentality. Jed York of the San Francisco 49ers represents one of the most impressive ownership turnarounds in NFL history. Just a few years ago, fans were saying, sell the team, sell the team. His handling of the Jim Harbaugh situation and the subsequent coaching disasters made him a laughingstock. But York learned from his mistakes. He hired Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and gave them complete control over football operations and then got out the way. Steve Bisciotti of the Baltimore Ravens has built one of the most consistently excellent franchises since taking over. The Ravens have been competitive almost every single season under Bisciotti's ownership, with multiple playoff appearances and multiple Super Bowls. These level 5 owners have all proven they can build championship caliber organizations and sustain success over multiple years. They're just not Hall of Famers like the next group. These owners are Hall of Fame level. Clark Hunt and the Hunt family, now that they've won multiple Super Bowls in a 10-year period, the Chiefs' recent dominance with Patrick Mahomes shows Hunt has built something special in Kansas City. His willingness to invest in coaching, facilities, and player development has created a championship culture that shows no signs of slowing down. Jeffrey Lurie of the Philadelphia Eagles represents what passionate, committed ownership looks like when combined with smart business decisions. Lurie's approach to building the Eagles has been methodical and successful, culminating in their first Super Bowl victory in 2017 and then another title in 2024. Paul Allen of the Seattle Seahawks was the gold standard of NFL ownership before his tragic death in 2018. Allen represents everything you want in an owner: passionate about winning, willing to spend money, and smart enough to hire the right people and get out of the way. Pat Bowlen of the Denver Broncos built one of the most successful franchises in NFL history during his ownership tenure before his passing in 2019. Bowlen's Broncos won 3 Super Bowls and made 7 appearances, showing incredible organizational consistency across multiple decades. These owners are all-time greats, and definitely Hall of Famers if they're not already in. They're just not the greatest. Level 7 are the best ever. Jerry Jones, Al Davis, the Mara family, the Rooney family, Paul Brown, George Halas, Eddie DeBartolo, Robert Kraft, and every person of Wisconsin. Jerry Jones of the Dallas Cowboys is simultaneously one of the most successful and most frustrating owners in NFL history. Jones revolutionized the business side of the NFL, building the most valuable franchise in all of sports and transforming how the league generates revenue. The Cowboys won 3 Super Bowls in the 90s, creating one of the greatest dynasties in NFL history. They're known as America's team, but since 1995, it's been pretty much downhill since there. But I still think, because of what he did for the league, he has to be here. The Rooney family of the Pittsburgh Steelers represents the gold standard of NFL ownership across generations. With 6 Super Bowl victories and a culture of winning that spans decades, the Rooneys have built something truly special in Pittsburgh. Same goes with the Mara family of the New York Giants, embodies old school NFL excellence done right. With 4 Super Bowl victories, including those legendary upsets over the Patriots' perfect season and then the Patriots again, the Giants have shown they can rise to occasion when it matters the most, even if the past decade has been less than mediocre. George Halas was instrumental in founding the NFL and building the Chicago Bears into one of the most historic franchises. Halas didn't just own the team, he helped create the league itself, serving as a player, coach, and owner while establishing the foundation of professional football. Paul Brown of the Cleveland Browns was a revolutionary figure who changed how football was played and coached. Brown invented many concepts that are now standard in the NFL, from face masks to playbooks to the modern passing game. He would also then found the Cincinnati Bengals because the Browns had pushed him out. Eddie DeBartolo of the San Francisco 49ers built one of the greatest dynasties in the NFL history. The 49ers won 5 Super Bowls in the 1980s and 1990s with legends like Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, and Steve Young creating a culture of excellence that defined an era. Al Davis of the Oakland Raiders created one of the most iconic franchises in history. Just win, baby wasn't just a slogan, it was a philosophy that defined Raiders football for decades. Robert Kraft of the New England Patriots created the greatest dynasty in modern NFL history. The 20-year run of dominance included 9 Super Bowl appearances and 6 victories, and every owner in the state of Wisconsin is the best as well. Countless championships, legendary coaches, and even more legendary players for the Green Bay Packers, all without one owner. And so there you have it, the 7 levels of NFL owners. Thanks for watching.